Thanks for tuning into the MoveOTX Gear Review channel. And if you haven't figured it out by now, we are still focusing on my outdoor adventuring and camping gear. So I just got back from a 2-day overnight stay in the Santa Cruz Mountains in California with my son and his fellow Boy Scouts. We had a blast, and I want to talk about my system overall, and I want to also talk about the Therm-A-Rest NeoAir Venture. And that's my air pad that I used for the first time for this trip, this outing. Because there's not a whole lot of videos out there about the Venture. There's a lot of other Therm-A-Rest pads, and they're all kind of the same thing. But you got to pick a pad that really fits you what you want. And it all folds up and rolls into your entire sleeping system that you have. So let's get the Swiss Sport Trekker bag out of the way. You guys saw that in my other video. Go ahead and check that out. It's a 30-degree bag, but it also fits right in line with the entire system as a whole. So let's see. Let's start with the Therm-A-Rest. The Therm-A-Rest pad. It's first of all, it's an air pad. It's 5 centimeters thick. Like all air pads with the Therm-A-Rest name, it has that kind of crinkly and crunchy kind of a sound. But honestly, I think that's overplayed a little bit. I found it that bothersome at all. It definitely is not as crunchy as like a potato chip bag or a Mylar balloon or anything like that. It's crunchy, like a muted kind of crunchiness to it. So let's move my clothing out of the way. Let's get to that later. Let's talk about the Therm-A-Rest first. Okay, so like I said, it's this 5 centimeter thick when it's fully inflated. Actually, you're seeing it deflated now because I'm going to show you how I inflate it. But it's 5 centimeters when it's fully inflated. It has an R value of 2, I think, maybe a little bit higher, a little bit more than 2. But to supplement that, what you're seeing is a layer of Reflectix. Okay, Reflectix is like home building material. RV campers use it all the time to insulate their windows. So the Reflectix has about an R value of 2.5, I believe. Now, don't quote me on that. Go ahead and look up Reflectix. Reflect-IX basically, and go ahead and look that up. I should probably add it to the commentary below. But at any rate, this adds an R value of about 2 in addition to the R value of 2 for the Therm-A-Rest Venture, and together they work great. I had no problems being cold. Temperatures this weekend in the Santa Cruz Mountains dropped down to about the upper 40s, and in the upper 40s things start to get cold. You start feeling it, especially if you're only in a 30-degree bag. Okay, if you don't pick out your base layer clothing wisely, you don't monitor your temperatures wisely, you will feel cold. Therm-A-Rest air pads, not the self-inflating ones, mind you. This is not a self-inflating pad, by the way, so you have to blow into the air inlet. Okay, I've found I could blow this up with about 24 big breaths of air, but unfortunately after 10 or 12 I start to get faint and dizzy, and not a pleasant experience. I found that very unpleasant. So I went also and invested in this Therm-A-Rest NeoAir, like a bellows inflator. It basically looks like a dry sack, and it kind of is. But it's basically a dry sack that you fill up with air, and you use it to inflate your Therm-A-Rest pad. Okay, so I apologize for being off camera. Let's try and there we go. So what you do is you take this clear rubber piece right there. Can you see that? It's kind of sticky, and you just place that and stretch that over the air inlet. And I'm going to try and do this on camera so you can really see this here, because this is part of your learning curve when you go out there and get set up for your base camp. And you basically just kind of stretch it on. There we go, just like that. So it's not like screwed down or anything really firm or rigid, so you have to kind of be careful. Don't pull it off. Just leave it like that. Set it back down, and again, imagine we're in my tent. Okay, set it back down just like that. And what you want to do is get this bag loose and get it kind of inflated with air. I'm going to do this off camera just a little bit. It's just too big here. But you basically fill it up. Put your arm in your hand, open up your hand inside, put it inside, and then you want to cinch closed the top of the bag by the drawstring, and you want to just kind of roll it up like that. Okay, and you just do this repeatedly. Okay, you pull it back out. Okay, I'm going to do this off camera so I can get a bigger bag full of air, and you guys can hopefully see that a little bit more effectively. There we go. So open the bag back up, put my hand back inside, there you go, get it to open up. Just, in fact, two hands. You put two hands inside of it and get to really spread out and balloon out, and close it back up by the drawstring. And here we go. We got a big breath this time. Okay, and just kind of roll it up, just like that. Okay, see how I'm doing that? And I hope you guys can hear that too. Okay, so you just roll it up like this, just like that. And it's easier in a tent, obviously, but just like that. And you just keep doing this. Now, as time consuming as this appears to be, eventually you'll get to a point after, I think maybe six or so good sized bags, you'll get to a point where your air pad is pretty inflated. And at that point, hey, you can go ahead and manage 3 or 4 breaths to really bring it up to a comfortable level of inflation for you. And this, I think at 30 bucks, okay, is a great investment. Okay, unless you're like really in good shape and you can afford those breaths and you can do that without getting dizzy or fatigued. For me, the average Joe, this is a great investment. Okay, not only that, okay, it's also it's almost a dry sack. Okay, so I used it this past weekend. Number one, to carry my clothing. So what I did was I put my clothing in here. Actually, I put my clothing in a separate like Target plastic bag, and I just shoved that in here. Okay, so this also contained my clothing for the trip. Okay, now when I got to my camp, took the Target bag out, put my clothes aside, went ahead and pumped up the NeoAir. Okay, now this also served a third roll as my pillow. Okay, so I've got 3 things in one with this one piece of gear. Okay, and it's featherweight, it weighs nothing. It folds up, and just roll it up, stuff it in my pack when I don't need it. Okay, so this has been a real knockout addition to my loadout. Okay, I don't need to carry a dedicated pillow. Okay, I just use this. I make use of my extra clothing, and I'm good to go for that. But most importantly, it allowed me an easy way to inflate my air pad. Okay, so something for you guys to consider. Okay, not only when you get an air pad, okay, you got to think about how you're going to inflate it too. Okay, so keep that in mind. It was kind of an afterthought to me. Honestly, that was an afterthought to me. You see a lot of product reviewers, and I guess they're in really good physical condition and really good shape, and they can just totally blow into their air pads and not have any problems with it. But for me, this was awesome. This was a total awesome addition to my kit in 3 different ways, basically, too. So let's focus back here on the sleep system. So you saw my Reflectix pad underneath. This is basically an earth pad, so to speak. It just protects the air pad, the Therm-A-Rest, from rocks and sticks and things like that. Of course, I go through and do diligence before I put my tent down. I'm clearing the earth and things like that, but still, you can't clear everything. So this adds an extra layer of safety. Plus, like I said earlier, it's a piece of thermal gear that reflects heat back into my body, and you really want to retain that heat. You do not want the earth cooling you down in the middle of the night. That's just the worst experience in the world, I think. You're basically lying on drafty ground, so to speak. It feels like you're lying on a draft, basically. All this heat just leaving my body. And this was a major upgrade this past trip. So the NeoAir Venture is about 70 bucks, and the Reflectix at my local hardware store again was like $8 or $9 or whatever. So definitely money well spent. At some point, I will replace the Reflectix with like an 8 crate foam Therm-A-Rest pad of some sort, but for now I'm totally good with this until this thing basically falls apart. So that's the Therm-A-Rest NeoAir Venture. Gets a big Tom thumbs up from me. I like it because it's not mummy shaped either. So I'm kind of a stretcher and a sprawler, so to speak, when I sleep. Okay, so let's take you off the camera here. So the whole thing is square. And my mummy sack over there fits right on it really nicely. Okay, so I find I like to stretch and move around a lot when I sleep. So the smaller mummy shaped pads, I figured, would be like me rolling off a cliff basically at night or something. It didn't really appeal to me. I mean, who knows? Maybe I could try a friend's or borrow someone's someday, and this would become obsolete. But for now, hey, this is great. From head to toe, I've got a lot of room to sprawl out and stretch out. I don't really take a weight penalty. This entire pad is only about 1.5 pounds maybe. It rolls up to about the size of a Nalgene bottle. What did I do? Oh, here's the carry case, by the way. So here's the carry case. Again, like I said, about the size of a Nalgene bottle. Really compact and nicely lightweight. So So I also want to talk about, now that's the Therm-A-Rest, so you guys can probably log off here if all you wanted to do is take a look at the Therm-A-Rest, but I also think philosophy of use has to play a big part of this. How do I use this in my overall system? Okay, so you saw my Swiss Sport Trekker bag, it's a 30-degree bag, but on top of that, really the key element for me has been my base layer clothing. Okay, so I've made a significant but I put significant time in upgrading my base layer clothing, and I use this dry release type of fabric, sports clothing. Okay, so this is like my long johns basically. This goes right up on my skin. It keeps my skin dry. So even though the first half of the night it's warm, like 60 degrees or 65, 70 degrees or so, whatever the temperature is, when I first go to bed, I'm not hot and sweating. Okay, that is a huge mistake that I think people really overlook. I know I overlooked it personally, and I sweat a lot in the first half of the night. Then the middle of the night comes around, and it gets into the 40s. Guess what? I'm cold. Okay, no matter what I do at that point, I can't get warm, and it's a cycle. Okay, I think, okay, I'll put more clothing on. Well, you're basically wrapping more clothing over your wet clothing, and it's just a horrible feeling, and it's a cold feeling. I mean, some of the most bitter cold, it doesn't have to be bitter cold to feel bitter cold, basically, is the learning curve that I was on. Okay, so just because it's 48, 49 degrees, hey, no big deal, but if your base layer clothing is wet, cut that in half. Okay, it feels like 20 degrees. Okay, so that's my long john pants that I wear, and this is kind of like my top. And I apologize, I only have one hand to do this here, but anyways, it's a dry release kind of a fabric. What do they call it? They call it yeah, dry release fabric is what they call it, and it's a really thin, okay, sports athletic wear. Okay, and it doesn't offer much by way of insulating layers. Okay, so here's your base layer, dry, ventilation. And the next layer is my insulation layer, which I have used fleece. Now, I like fleece. I'm comfortable with fleece, but I'm not married to the idea overall. If you guys think, hey, I'll throw this out to you guys. If you guys think wool would be a better insulation layer for me on top of my base layer, definitely post the comments below. I'd really love to read your comments on that. So I've always used fleece. I find it very comfortable. And this is a Timberland long sleeve sweatshirt that I've had for probably 15 years, and it just keeps on going strong. The sleeve is kind of, the sleeve stitching blew out, but heck, this is so comfortable at night. I wear it all the time. I love it. Footwear, definitely wool socks must have, period, end of discussion. You don't want, again, layered up sweaty feet. You want warm fabric that wicks away moisture and keeps your feet dry at the same time. This was a major upgrade over just whatever cotton athletic sports socks I had. Wool socks, I got these from Costco, I don't know, a pack of 4 for like 18, 15 bucks or something like that. I cannot believe I didn't upgrade to wool socks years ago. Oh, must have. If you guys, you know what? If you guys take anything, if you guys take one data point out of this video, take this one, wool socks for your feet. Oh, it's just so unbelievably warm and comfortable when you're at night and it's cold. So that is it, guys. Okay, I wish I could say something more, but quite honestly, I might say something. Feel free to post comments and questions. I welcome the discussion. So this has been a quick review of the Therm-A-Rest NeoAir Venture, as well as some side commentary on my sleep systems overall. I'll catch you guys later. Stay safe out there, have fun everybody, and enjoy the outdoors. Adios, guys.